Hello, friends. Welcome to Good News. In this episode, join me, Lynn Shamatek, and Deacons John Shamatek and Lauren Welsh as we sit down with Kate Riley, Canon for Youth and Young Adult Ministry. Discover Kate's inspiring journey, her passion for empowering young people, and how authentic community and creativity are shaping the future of the church. Whether you're a parent, volunteer, or just curious about the next generation in the church, you'll find hope and practical wisdom in this lively conversation. Let's dive in.
Kate Riley, welcome to our podcast, Good News. We are thrilled to have you here with us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I have seen all the episodes, so I'm glad it's finally my turn.
We have been excited to get you here to speak with us. You are the Canon for Youth and Young Adults for the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in youth and young adult ministries? What has inspired you to not only get started, but stick with it? That can't be an easy thing.
I was meeting with some of my colleagues across the church. I'm one of the longest standing diocesan youth ministers of the current generation. I contribute that 100% to the wonderful support that youth ministry gets in this diocese, not only financially from our churches, but with adult volunteers and mentors. Everyone likes to think that youth ministry is all fun and games, which a lot of it is, literal games. But there's also a lot that goes into it, like pastoral care and resource management. Everyone needs a nap sometimes. Even Jesus naps. I can't remember which gospel story it is, but I know it's there. I started my time as a youth minister at the ripe age of 18. I was born in Texas and moved to Appalachia in Allegheny County in the year of our Lord 2011. No, I was 11. When I was 11. And spent a great part of my adolescence and young adulthood at a church called Emmanuel Episcopal. If you're ever driving on I-68 West into the mountains, you cannot miss it. She is on top of the hill, proudly standing over Cumberland. There, I met one of my best friends who happened to also be my priest's daughter, where we survived Catholic education together for many years. I remember getting detention a lot because my religion teacher would say something and I'd be like, well, I'm an Episcopal, so I can be a priest if I want to, and you can't stop me. My priest was great growing up. There were about 4 of us in our youth group, my brother, his daughter, and 1 or 2 other kids. He was always willing to drive us to diocesan events, to New York City for night watch, to a water park for the day. He was really invested in us from a young age. I served on vestry. I was an acolyte. I was a reader. I always said that my church resume was a lot longer than my high school academic one. Right after I graduated from Frostburg State University, I reached out to Father Wes Wilbenhorst, my predecessor in this office, and a great mentor to me for many years. I had thought about the master's in education and teaching middle school history because I love middle schoolers. He suggested I try out the Episcopal Service Corps. So I applied to 4 or 5 different service corps around the country. Luckily for me, Reverend Jan Hamill said yes to my application to come work in this office with my predecessor and mentor. Both Father Chapman and Father Wilbenhorst were great influences on my apprenticeship to take this role over. In 2013, I served as associate for youth and young adult ministry. And then the bishop and Father West agreed that I was too good a fit to let go. I became the administrator for youth and young adult ministry. When Wes moved on to interim ministry, I took over as missioner for youth and young adults. About 2 years ago, Bishop Sutton saw fit to make me canon for youth and young adult ministry. I have been serving on diocesan staff in one role or another since 2013.
Wow, that is longevity. That's
It is.
great. That's amazing.
I was very excited when Bishop Carey graciously invited me to continue my ministry.
Bishop Carey knows a good thing when she sees it.
Very lucky to have Bishop Carey. She is godsend in so many ways.
Kate, it seems to me like in the course of your ministry, you do a lot of traveling all over the diocese. Can you talk about that and what happens when you go to different churches? What are you finding?
Yes, I am on my 3rd Subaru Forester since starting this ministry. Love Subarus, big fan. And I collectively have put over 300,000 miles on those 3 vehicles doing just church. I really enjoyed my title of missioner. I'm honored to be a canon, but secretly in my heart of hearts, I still consider myself missioner because missioner implies to go out and to do. And so my favorite thing is to get into our churches, meet our people, and make sure they understand that I'm a resource for them. They are my boss. I will do whatever I can to make sure their youth are safe, learning and growing, and that their communities are thriving with all the glitter glue humanly possible. I just
Mm.
really enjoy getting to travel around the diocese. I have an open visitation calendar that I publish around this time of year. I think it'll go live in a couple of weeks. I offer to come to your parish and I will preach at the 8 o'clock service, the 10 service, the 9
Wow.
service. If you're having me come out, I want to make sure I get to meet everybody. Even if you don't have any kids at the early meditative quiet service, you might have a great grandmother, you might have an aunt, you might have a godparent, you might have somebody who has a youth that they want more involved in a spiritual life or in a community that loves and accepts them. And that is a connection I would love to make. Since I am a layperson and cannot celebrate at the table, I still need a priest to be there. I'm not going to make you write a homily for the 8 o'clock service and then me preach at the 10. That's just silly. So we come out and I can either bring a projector and do a formal presentation to everyone. I can lead a youth groups, a children's time together, a children's sermon. My jurisdiction is really those 35 and under. Youth implies middle school and high school. Young adult implies college and early 30s. I am a mother of 2 small boys, 5 and under. So I have brushed up a lot on my children's ministry abilities and I'm very comfortable hanging out with the littlest. They have the best questions. They really do. And so much joy. It's just a lot of fun. And I'm also happy to come out not on a Sunday morning. I can do a Thursday night youth group. I can do a Tuesday night vestry meeting. I try and fill my calendar as much as I can because when you love your ministry, it's easy to say yes. I like to travel around. I think I visited over 15 of our 100 churches last year and then an extra 10 to 20 ministry events or camps or VBSs or service project days. We have our own calendar that I publish and coordinate for the year that has a gathering at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times a month, depending on the time of year.
So, Kate, with all the work that you do with the youth, how do you manage your home life and your children?
One of the greatest things about being a diocesan person is that wherever I go in the state of Maryland, and honestly, my connections with the wider church anywhere in the country, I have a friend. I have a family I can lean on. I have someone I can contact and have a relationship with and be present with. I am really blessed that, unlike a lot of people my age, I actually have a village. My village is made up of wonderful church friends and church family members that we've made over my 10 years living in Baltimore. It's made up of great friends my husband has made and then have become our family. In fact, I asked a couple of our youth ministers from St. Bartholomew's Church to adopt me as a godchild in my 20s. Because I have no idea who my original godparents are. Kathy and Marty Clark have become integral in our life and they're basically like an extra set of grandparents to my children. And having kids really did make me slow down and say no to a few things, even if I really wanted to say yes. There have been pilgrimages or service trips in the summer that I just can't squeeze in because it is the week my son's off of school or the week that we've planned our family vacation already. So I really appreciate that Bishop Carey is also anti-grind culture. She would like for her wonderful people to take care of themselves and spend time with their families. We are very much encouraged to take all of our vacation time and rest time. It's really great. But there are days that I would love to have another me somewhere, either at home or at the diocesan level, so that all the things I want to get done can get done and all the things I need to do get done. I would be lying if I didn't say there was often a very large pile of laundry waiting for me late at night.
Kate, you're going out to the churches and having a wonderful day with them, and I'm sure everybody gets very excited about it and about being a youth minister or being part of a youth group. Do you provide tools or resources to them so after you leave, there's something that they have to build with?
Yeah, so one of the things that I advertise is one of our many services here at the Diocesan Center is resource management, sourcing curriculums, how to budget, how to start a youth group, how to restart a youth group, different options for service projects that are local, regional, or international. So if there is a single question anyone has to do with children, youth, and young adult ministry, if I don't know the answer, I know someone who does, or a service that is affordable and providable. I just had a great conversation with some folks from St. George's Hampstead that were like, hey, we would really like to restart a youth group, but we don't know where to start. And so we had a Zoom meeting about here's how to start. Here's great resources that are free from Virginia Theological Seminary, or here's what I've seen other churches doing in your area or in the next region over. One of the great things about getting to bop around to the different regions is that things in Western Maryland do not operate like they do in Southern Maryland. Things in Baltimore do not operate like they do in Harford County, despite only being maybe 30 to 40 minutes apart. It's very different cultures in our state. Despite being a small geographic place, we are very diverse. And it somehow takes 4 or 5 hours to get from one corner to the other. I've done it before in the same day. I try and make sure that I'm always putting new tools in my toolkit so that when I get asked hard questions, I have some idea of an answer. And if I don't, I know who I can call.
That's great.
Kate, with all the resources that you have, the questions that people are asking you, and whatever comes up with the youth and young adults that you are working with, what has surprised you the most?
What has surprised me the most? That despite us literally having a book that tells us what worship should look like, every church does it just a little different. I was visiting Holy Cross the Rocks in Hartford County and talking with one of our great colleagues, Mary Davison, and said something about, okay, so when we process up to the altar, do you want me to turn left? Do you want me to turn right? And she said she was supplying somewhere and someone said, oh, we just do it the normal way. It's like, well, every church has its own normal way, but us as a diocese, all 110 beautiful churches here have their own ways of doing things. So it's something that I tell all of our youth when they're like, oh, service is kind of slow. I say, well, think about the fact that across the Episcopal Church, everyone is saying the prayers in their own way, but kind of the same together. And everyone's celebrating at the table slightly differently. Some people might have a children's service at this time. Some might be using a loaf of bread instead of wafer crackers. Some might be using contemporary music instead of the hymnal. Think about all the beautiful variations that could be happening at the same time. And how lucky are we that we get to be together in this space? There will technically be another 7th Sunday of Easter, but not with these people and not in this place. As a teenager, I was said, oh, well, we say the same prayers every week, except for the high holidays. But really, there's so much beautiful variation and uniqueness in our diocese that I am constantly amazed when I go to churches and see how they have their children and youth interacting in the service, or what they do after the service to engage families to continue to grow community in that special place and in that special time. It's a real privilege.
Okay, I'm wondering, let me wonder one thing first. And one is sort of on a personal level for you. What has this ministry been as you've grown into it and exercised it all these years now? What has it meant for your own spiritual life and your own spiritual development?
I would definitely say that my spiritual life is as messy as youth ministry is in general. Being diocesan is such a unique thing. We get to be a part of all these great, wonderful communities a little bit at a time, but then I don't have what I had growing up. I don't have the same church week to week. I don't have the same pastor week to week. I have made a lot of really great, deep, and meaningful connections with my clergy friends. I have 2 spiritual directors and 1 therapist. I get to attend what I would consider my own parish, like once a quarter, maybe. I've had to find many different ways to sustain my faith through the ups and downs of such a big ministry. And I love working with our students. They give me hope. They give me great reasons to pray, and sometimes some scary reasons to pray. It has been a wonderful time to try and find what feeds me now as a young adult and as a parent. What fed me when I was 18 is different. There is a great opportunity always to seek out pastoral care when I need it. I have hundreds of people I could now call if I was in crisis, which is great. Or if I have some joy to share, which is often the reason I get to call people. So I now have more spiritual practices in my toolbox than I thought I could ever possibly have. I'm constantly being reminded that as a minister, we have to fill our own cup to make sure that we can pour into others. I tell our peer ministry high schoolers that we prefer they attend the retreat for high schoolers so that they then can be great staff members and supports for their middle school counterparts when we have our middle school retreat. Staff meetings and all these kinds of things to make sure that they themselves feel prepared and ready for big events like that, which is pretty much what I do all the time. So I try and make sure that I also have my cup full whenever possible.
That's a great model for all of us, lay or ordained, in terms of just how do you keep refreshed and where do you get spiritual guidance from. Let me ask you this too. I think I'm wondering about when COVID came, it derailed so much about what the church was doing and what the church was about and how we could be church. It helped open a lot of doors with technology and so on, where we wouldn't be having this kind of conversation. But there's a concern I've heard from folks when you look around many of our congregations that most of the people sitting there in the pews kind of look like Lauren and me. We're well into our, what shall I call it, Lauren?
Wisdom era.
I think people that will often ask, and we ask this of when I was on the Commission on Ministry for people looking for ordinations, basically, what is the future of the church? With your work with young folks, what are you seeing? What does the church need to be? What does the church need to do? Maybe different from what we've been doing that will help us engage people that are, let's say, not in their wisdom years.
I heard a great story at a conference I went to a few years ago about how this priest was asking their adult child about their spiritual life and why they weren't attending church anymore. And they said, "What does church offer me that I can't get elsewhere?" There's a sense of community. I have that through my soccer team or my gaming group. There's a sense of service to your fellow person. I get that through work. We have community service days. You can feed your spiritual life. I get that through yoga or whatever that person said. This adult parent is asking their child why they aren't attending church anymore. And that is the vibe the kids are giving out today. I can get community service through 1,000 other organizations. I can get a sense of community through my school sports teams or a club that I'm a part of. And the question of whether God exists or not has always been on our minds. Kids are more fervent in their use of technology and finding out answers on their own via Google. There's a lot to say against church in this modern day and age. And with the church's history, sometimes that makes sense. When we look at the Crusades and the abuse of power, there is still lots of hope. There is still a lot to learn and grow. Church has the ability to be the most amazing thing in the world. And I think we're building up to that. Young people these days want authenticity. They want to make sure that they are not wasting their time doing something that is not going to fulfill them. So if they are showing up to church at all, they really want to make sure they are engaged, that they feel like it's something to get up for in the morning on a Sunday when they really want to sleep, to show up on a Thursday night to pack boxes for the food pantry or to make prayer shawls, whatever the ministry might be. It's really about listening to where they want to go in what direction, because they are the future. We tell them all the time that they are not only the future, but they are also the present. My biggest thing with inviting young people to church is that we are inviting them to be a full part of the community and not just a token or something to sit on the altar and look at, to make sure that they feel really involved. So inviting the youngest of us to help usher, to help take the gifts up, to fully participate in whatever part of service they are interested in. We have a hopeful new program coming up for the 2025-2026 calendar, where we will be inviting all orders to participate. I'm hoping to have deacons priests, bishops, lay ministers, brothers and sisters, as well as a variety of ministries show up so kids can ask, why do you feel called to this? Why is this important? What do you do that's different than the other person? And then end with a curated Eucharist that explains why we do the things we do. I think so much of Episcopal identity is wrapped up in who we aren't. We aren't Catholic and we're not far evangelical. We're somewhere in the middle. But my goal is to help encourage our people to figure out what we are. Why are you called to the Episcopal Church? Why are you called to serve God's people through these ways? And so the future of the church is here and it's now. We just have to make sure that the doors are opening and inviting and that maybe the youth group room doesn't smell like 1985. We want to feel freshness. We want to feel an actual welcome and not just, oh, we have a place for you in the corner.
I think you really unveiled a key for me that I've heard someone else talk about when they're talking about young people and the church and how desperate they are to be heard. They really have something to say and something to ask. And so often, if we're closed to that, they're not going to want to come. They're not going to be part of us. That's a really important key. I'm glad you mentioned it.
My number one piece of advice for any church wanting more youth and families is to make sure there is a space for wiggly bodies. I'm really grateful when I get to take my little boys to church with me, but it's hard for them to sit still. And I would say it's even hard for 15 to 16-year-olds to sit still for very long. So having some space that's soft or that we can stretch out a little bit or engagement that way. If you want families to come, they need to be able to walk in the door and feel like there's a place for them. My favorite spot is to rip out a couple pews right in the middle, put a baby gate up and some soft toys and just let the kids be in church and to fall in love with the prayers and the smells and the bells and how your community does liturgy. And then just make sure they're involved in everywhere that we can, more so than just picking up chairs and tables after coffee hour, but maybe hosting coffee hour, maybe baking for the Eucharistic bread. They just want to be involved. They don't want to show up and just sit.
They want to be part of the community. They want to be the community.
It reminded me that there was a diagram I learned when I did one of my early certifications for youth and family ministry of a one-eared Mickey Mouse, where this is the majority of the church, this big brown circle, and then children and youth are stuffed into this smaller circle that's attached, but still separate. I've carried that image with me, knowing that if we want children and youth to continue to find value in church community, we have to squish that in all the way. Everyone has a different development, and we should definitely have more glitter involved in arts and crafts to really send home the messages. But we have to make sure that as they get older into their teen years and into their young adult years, that they feel just as loved and cared for and fully invested in church.
That's great too. Kate, you have a ton of activities and options and youth events going on year round. Are there any things upcoming or in the future that you'd like to point us to? You mentioned this one conference involving all sorts of people with the youth so they could discover what the different orders of ministry are about and what the church does. What other kinds of things would you want to point people to if they have opportunities to participate in activities that may be in their own parish but might be diocesan level or even interreligious?
Thank you for the opportunity to plug my favorite things. We like to say that we are the place where God's motley crew comes together. Post-COVID, diocesan ministry is even more important because I come from a small church where we did not have critical mass. We did not have critical mass for things like retreats, service trips, pilgrimages. There were only 4 of us. It felt silly to go away for a whole week to just be the 4 of us in a different place. Diocesan ministry is a beautiful place where the 3 kids from Western Maryland, the 4 kids from Baltimore, and the 1 kid from Harford County can all come together and make up a group of 20 to 30 or 30 to 60 with other adult mentors. It is such a positive experience for adults to come and chaperone these events because they learn just as much from the kids as the kids learn from them. And you get to experience a great new community that will only ever happen once. We encourage everyone of all ages to come and participate in the events that the diocese hosts. We have camp at Claggett coming up this summer. We have a great new programs director, Reverend Sarah Yo, is serving. And I will be out there for 2 weeks being a camp chaplain, hiking and biking, doing arts and crafts, finding God near the pool, having chapel twice a day to sing songs and share prayers and stories of the Bible, and making sure that everyone feels our community is built on the rock of God. That is a great opportunity coming up. It's 6 weeks this summer, with 2 weeks on for our wonderful senior staff who are our college age students who take their whole summer and dedicate it to bug spray, hydration, sunscreen, and opportunities for kids to be themselves in a safe space and learn about God and their faith and how other people can play a role in making the world a better place. I feel like I talk it up like it's Disney World, but it's even better than Disney World, to be honest.
It's less expensive than flying to Florida and buying a Disney 3-day pass.
I haven't been to Disney in a long time.
No.
I have been to camp, though.
If people are interested in finding out more about the specific programs, is there a website link or email that we can put in the show notes? We'll put it on the screen as well. Do you have that right at hand that we can let people know how to find these programs and find you?
Absolutely. I manage our youth website so that our communications team doesn't have to, because things are always changing in youth ministry. You can find all of this information and more at www.youth.episcopalmaryland, all spelled out, .org.
Oh, fantastic.
And we are on almost all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram. I haven't delved into TikTok yet, but there are other more qualified people to do that.
Absolutely. Oh, so that's perfect. It's really a one-stop shop, and people can find out all of these things, find if there are, if there's registration, are the registrations still open, how much is it going to cost, and who's it meant for. That's awesome.
And everything about camp is on there as well. When we have our triennial events through the denominational church, I'll post about things there. There's also resources, books, websites, short videos, curriculum, conglomerations on our webpage, and an entire page dedicated to our young adult ministry as well.
What a treasure. That's fantastic. Thank you. So, Kate, you've talked about a lot of good things today, and I always want to make sure that Lauren is able to ask the last question. Let me bounce the ball over to Lauren.
Kate, you are so full of passion and joy working with our children. We're blessed to have you as our canon for youth and young adults. What words of advice would you like to leave our viewers and listeners today?
I would say, don't be afraid to get messy. The best ministry happens when we are unequivocally ourselves and ready to dig deep into what God has presented to us. I have gotten to see great ministries involving children and youth, from planting a garden and helping monarch butterflies return to making sure that someone has a cooler house to live in the middle of what feels like nowhere, Kentucky. There are 1,000 ways that you can figure out how to incorporate youth and young adults into your already blossoming ministries. And I guarantee you there are some young people out there who want to know more and who want to do more. So don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to get messy. The greatest thing about ministry is that the Holy Spirit is there and will work her way in no matter what.
Amen to that. Kate Riley, thank you so much for being with us today. We are so appreciative of your presence, your words, your wisdom. We're just grateful. Thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you both so much for having me. I'm so excited to brag about this. And I am just really blessed that I can continue to do a ministry that is both my joy and my job.
And John and I want to thank all those who are watching and listening for the gift of your time with us today. Until next time, peace and blessings.
This episode of Good News has been brought to you by Listening for Clues. For more podcasts, check out our YouTube channel or our website listeningforclues.com.